We'll call the City of Vermillion council meeting for 7 p.m. at Monday, August 21st, 2023 to order. Can you please call roll?
Helwig. Here. Holland.
Here.
Humphrey.
Here.
Genowine. Here. Lettler.
Here.
Murrah. Price. Here. Ward.
Here.
Mayor Cole.
Here. Will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the August 7th, 2023 special meeting, the August 7th, 2023 regular meeting, and the August 9th and 10th of 2023 budget meetings? If so, is there any changes to the minutes, or is there a motion to approve?
I move we approve.
Motion approved by Councilor Holland. Is there a second by Councilor Helwig? Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by saying nay. Minutes are approved. Adoption agenda. Has everyone had a chance to review the agenda? If so, is there any adoptions or changes to the agenda? Councilor Murrah?
I would like to add to the agenda an executive session at the end of our meeting there.
Motion to move for an executive session. Is that the South Dakota Codified Law 125-2 subsection 4 for contract negotiations?
Second.
There's a second by Councilor Price. Any other discussion? All those in favor to add an executive session at the end of the meeting, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by saying nay. Adopt the agenda with the executive session at the end of the meeting. Visitors to be heard. Persons addressing the council shall use the microphone at the podium. Please raise your hand to be recognized and go to the podium and state your name and address. Items not on the agenda, members of the public may speak under visitors to be heard on any topic not on the agenda, and remarks are limited to 5 minutes and no decision will be made at this time. On agenda items, public testimony will be taken at the beginning of each agenda item and after the subject has been announced by the mayor and explained by staff. Any citizen who wishes may speak one time for 5 minutes on each agenda item. Public testimony will then be closed and the topic will be given to the governing body for possible action. At this point, only city council members and staff may discuss the current agenda items unless the council member moves to allow another person to speak and there's unanimous consent from the council. Questions from council members, however, may be directed to a staff or a member of the public through the presiding officer at any time. At this moment in time, is there any visitors to be heard? Seeing none, moving to the next item under public hearings. Oh, sorry, correct. Councilor.
That's good.
Anybody else? Councilor Holland has a message.
Okay. Vermillion has lost an outstanding citizen. Don Forsyth died last Thursday, August 17th. I only knew him for 10 years, but my wife, myself, Ted Munster, and Don had breakfast every Saturday. And together we discussed the latest happenings in Vermillion, and while we were at it, solved all the world's problems. Among the many other services, Don was a member of the Planning and Zoning Committee and was president of the committee when he passed away. He was committed to the welfare of Vermillion and the people in it. He will be missed as a friend, with our joyful and informative conversations every Saturday, and his contributions to Vermillion's benefit. Services for Don will be held on the First Baptist Church at 11 o'clock tomorrow.
Thank you. At this time, I ask that we pay our respects and give a moment of silence to Don. Thank you, Councilor Holland. Next item, public hearings, retail on-off sale malt beverage and South Dakota Farm wine license and retail on-off wine and cider license for 19 Brewing Company LLC located at 113 West Main Street.
Thank you. XIX, or 19 Brewing Company LLC, located at 113 West Main Street, has applied for a retail on-off sale malt beverage and SD Farm wine license, retail on-off sale wine and cider license. The malt beverage and SD Farm wine license is valid from issuance to expiration on June 30th, 2024, and the wine and cider license is valid from issuance to expiration on December 31st, 2023. Council has the ability to issue these licenses based on suitable applicant and suitable location. For the applicant, the owners Edwin Garish and Katie Ulrich have submitted their information to the South Dakota DCI and FBI for background checks. The DCI background checks revealed no disqualifying events, and the FBI background checks have not yet been received by the police chief. The police chief memo states that a check of the Vermillion police records revealed nothing that would disqualify the owners. And for the location criteria, this location is in the downtown business district, taking over the Mead Lumber Building. For the fees, a total of $800 has been received from the applicants, $650 is retained by the city, and $150 is paid to the state of South Dakota. Council is asked to make a decision on the approval or denial of the retail on-off sale malt beverage and SD Farm wine license, retail on-off sale wine and cider license for 19 Brewing Company LLC. If a motion is made to deny license, the reason needs to be included in the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Austin. Is there any visitors to be heard on this item? Seeing none, move to council for discussion. Any discussion by council? When are they looking at opening? Or when would you need this? Yeah, you can go ahead and answer it.
Okay. Hopefully sometime late October.
Okay, the reason why I asked is with some of the information pending, I just want to make sure that's not going to delay things.
Okay.
Any other questions? Rich?
Might be embarrassing, but Katie or John, didn't we do this a couple of meetings ago? Or was it something else to do with, I thought we gave them a permit.
No, not for this one. There was a consensus agenda item.
Is that what it was?
Yep.
Okay, that's fine, thank you.
Any other discussion by council?
Move approval. Second.
Motion approved by Councilor Price, second by Councilor Helwig. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by saying nay. Motion approved, carries. Next item, special permit to exceed permissible sound levels by no more than 50% for the USD Department of Music on or about Sunday, October 15th, 2023, from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. for a music festival on the south side of Prentice Park.
Thank you. The USD Department of Music has applied for a special permit to exceed allowable noise levels for the Music is Alive Festival on or about Sunday, October 15th, 2023, from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. on the south side of Prentice Park. A map is attached showing the area that is being used. The festival will have live music performed by USD and Vermillion High School and is free and open to the public. Council will need to determine if the event is in a suitable location with appropriate facilities during the allowable time and if the applicant can demonstrate the public benefit of the event. The $25 fee for the noise permit has been paid. Administration recommends approval of the special noise permit for the USD Department of Music unless information is presented indicating any problems related to the noise.
Thank you. Is there any visitors to be heard on this? Seeing none, move to council for discussion. Councilor Price?
I'm going to move approval, but before I do that, I want to say that, there were not that many good things that came out of the pandemic, but this was one of them, was that the outdoor music concert that this Music Alive Festival has happened a couple of years in a row since the pandemic. It's a wonderful event, and I hope everybody gets to go see it. So I would move approval.
Motion approved by Councilor Price. I also want to make note that that is my birthday weekend, so I want to say thank you for throwing a party in the park.
Second.
There's a second by Councilor Holland. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by saying nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item, first reading of ordinance 1487, amending the City of Vermillion Code of Ordinances, Title 15, Land Usage. Jose.
Thank you. The city is requesting to rezone Track 1 Jack Powell Edition from the NRC Natural Resource Conservation District to the GB General Business District. Track 1, it's a little bit hard to see, but this would be the bypass. This would be Stanford Street. This is Polaris for reference. Just west of Stanford and Polaris, you do have a 7-acre parcel that was recently platted and also annexed into the city. The annexation occurred on July 17th. At that point, the city council did annex it. When property is annexed into the city limits, it automatically goes into the NRC district, which is the strictest zoning district that we have within Vermillion. The city's Planning and Zoning Commission did consider this item at their August 14th meeting. At that meeting, after reviewing the proposed ordinance, the commission did vote 8-0 in favor of the city council adopting the proposed zoning amendment as amended by the planning commission. The amendments that the commission had on the document, on the ordinance, was the inclusion of the word resource in a couple of places, mainly in the title and on the actual verbiage of the ordinance. Instead of saying natural resource conservation district, I actually just put natural conservation district. So that's what the amendments were. The surrounding area to the one being considered, as you may be able to see in this drawing, are adjacent to it, where Polaris is actually in the GI district, so general industrial, and all other 3 sides of the area being considered tonight would be NRC still. However, in the future, the city will be asking for the north area of Track 1, so this area here to be hopefully Zone GB, so that would be consistent with Track 1, and the remaining area directly adjacent to Track 1 would then hopefully be rezoned to R3, so residential. Zoning Track 1 into the GB General Business District will allow for the proposed law enforcement center to be constructed at this site. The law enforcement center would be considered a permitted use in the proposed district as being considered tonight. The only financial cost at this time would be that of publishing the ordinance amendments. The city council is asked to hold a public hearing and consider the proposed zoning amendment. Staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend the city council advance the ordinance for consideration at the second reading. The second reading is planned for September 5th.
Thank you. Is there any visitors to be heard on this? Seeing none, move to council for discussion. Any discussion by council? Motion to approve for advancement by Councilor Murray, a second by Councilor Humphrey. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by saying nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
There is no old business. We'll move on to new business. New business will be a request from the Alpha Phi for the closing of North Pine Street from East Cedar Street to East National Street on Monday, September 4th, 2023 from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. for sorority bid day event.
Thank you, Mayor. I think you pretty much explained what the details are. It's pretty straightforward. For several years, the sorority has had, as part of their bid day event, a request to close this one block of North Pine Street from East Cedar to East National Street. The closure would be from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's part of their recruitment bid day events. We do have a couple representatives here if the council has questions. We'd recommend approval of the request to close North Pine Street for that block on September 4th. It is noted in there that the sorority will have a group that will clean up any items from the bid day following the event.
Thank you, John. Is there any visitors to be heard on this? Seeing none, move to council for discussion. Councilor Ward.
John, was last year's and previous year's approvals of this event 8 to 5? I seem to remember a shorter time period, but I could be wrong.
I didn't go back and research that to see previous ones. I don't know.
I did. It was 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. last year.
Representatives from Alpha Phi, could you come up and kind of walk us through? You can imagine, that's a pretty important artery going to campus. So what times are important for you to have?
So the event will start at noon, and that's when the girls will be at Alf's Auditorium and then run back to all the houses and stuff. So if you think 10 a.m. is a more adequate time, that's totally fine, just before. And
would 2 hours ahead of time give you enough time to set up and everything?
Yeah.
Okay. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to propose we amend this to go from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Yeah, that works.
Oh, well, still, just to be convenient to our citizens. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do have one question as well, if that's okay. Have you spoken with the surrounding residents?
Yeah, so typically like the day before, we'll go around and knock on the houses that are there to make sure they're aware, and then also like for cars to clear that area. We'll do that like the day before, or we can do it 2 days prior to, if that works.
Okay, but you haven't spoken to them yet prior to
No,
now?
we haven't spoken to them now, but I think they were notified of it. since it was coming here tonight.
Okay. Any other questions from council? Councilor Genoway?
Yeah, so I see that there was someone who expressed concern about the cleanup.
Yeah,
Can you
so
address that?
last year we had like little confetti poppers, and it was very like small pieces of trash that were like going around. We don't have those this year. There's not going to be small like confetti stuff like that. And then we also have a cleanup crew that will make sure that there's nothing in any neighboring yards or anything, or the streets.
Any other questions or discussion? Just to clarify, Councilor Ward, you have a motion from?
I don't think I officially.
Okay.
But I will. It'll help to. I move that we accept this petition with the amendment that it start at 10 a.m.
Second.
Till 5 p.m.?
Till 5 p.m., yes.
Okay. Motion to close the street from 10 a.m. till 5 p.m. for the Alpha Phi sorority bid day event on September 4th. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by saying nay. Motion carries. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, guys.
Next item be a resolution authorizing the purchase of landfill bale bags. Jose?
Thank you. The landfill baler compresses solid waste into bales and slides them into bags before the bale waste is transported into the landfill cell. Bale bags are used daily. The city would like to utilize a bid awarded to the city of Pierre on January 31st, 2023. The contract was awarded by Pierre to Accent Wire Tie for a price of $4.27 per bag. Staff has verified with Accent Wire Tie that they are willing to honor the bid price offered to Pierre earlier in the year. Statute 5-18-18 allows the city to purchase from lowest responsible bidder from a contract that was competitively solicited and awarded within the previous 12 months with concurrence of said bidder. So we have all of those items. We checked them and crossed them. The number of bags shipped determines the cost of the semi-load of bale bags for the Joint Powers Landfill Fund. The price is $4.27, as I mentioned earlier, for delivered bags. A semi-load can range from 14,000 to 17,500 bags. If the semi-load is delivered to the city as full, the cost would be $74,725. Administration recommends purchasing landfill bale bags from the bid awarded by the city of Pierre on January 31st, 2023 at $4.27 per delivered bag for a semi-load up to a maximum of 17,500 bags for a total of $74,725, and allow the city finance officer or city manager to sign the purchase order for the item.
Thank you, Jose. Is there any visitors to be heard on this? Seeing none, move to council for discussion. Councilor Holland?
Jose, how long does 17,000 bags last? Any idea?
I'm going to say about 6 months.
Really?
Give or take, yeah. That might take a little bit longer to go through them, maybe 8 months. That's why we've actually started ordering bale bags twice a year recently. But yeah, it depends on how much garbage is going into the landfill.
I thought you were going to say years.
No. I wish it was years, but no, it's not.
Thank you.
Councilor Humphrey?
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but the last time we did this, or a couple times ago, it took forever for them to come. Do you have any idea about when they'll be here?
We've actually, you're correct. COVID really did a number on all delivery, especially with this. Most of these items were actually coming out of China, so they were actually either stuck being made or stuck in a port somewhere in China. But lately, we've actually been they've been delivered on time. If we were to place the order, as we're hoping to tomorrow, we're hoping that they would be here around the second week of December of this year, so.
Councilor Price?
Can you just give us a comparison if these suffered from inflation too, and are they significantly priced differently than before, or is it about the same?
No, actually, last year, or the last order that we placed, if I remember correctly, it was around $5.25 per bag. So this number is a lot lower than that. The 427 is probably a little bit higher than what we had a few years back, maybe before COVID. but it's going to happen, inflation, but it's a lot lower than last year.
Should we order more?
Yeah.
Do we stock up? Do we stock up? Don't go bad, right? Motion approved by Counselor Price, there's second. Second by Counselor Humphrey. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by saying nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item will be the first reading of ordinance 1490, amending the City of Vermillion Code and Ordinances, Title 7, Traffic Code, Chapter 70.
Thank you, Mayor. The next few ordinances up for first reading really kind of all tie to the same thing, and they kind of all work together. First, we're going to learn a little bit about definitions that we might add to the code and use of sidewalks as they pertain to dockless vehicles, and I'll talk about what those are in a second. Your second ordinance will deal with basically recognizing scooters and tying them to follow the rules of the road. And then you'll have a cleanup one where you're going to talk about, or the third one is an operating authority, which is the name that's given to the dockless vehicle business, a private business doing that. So just, they all kind of sync together if you hadn't figured that out, but we'll just kind of walk through these a little bit. So going back to the ordinance before you right now at the moment, 1490, this one, as I mentioned, does two things. It adds some definitions to our city code and addresses the use of the sidewalk. And I might just turn to that second page, the proposed ordinance before you. A couple of those definitions that would be added or modified. One is an authorized parking zone. And really what that means is this is when public property is used to park a dockless vehicle. And I have used the word dockless vehicle a few times now, and for those watching at home, they're probably like, what is he talking about? A dockless vehicle is an electric motorized scooter or motorized vehicle. It could be an electric bike, it could be a motorized foot scooter. It becomes a dockless vehicle when it is for commercial use. So I know a number of the kids in my neighborhood have one of those little scooters that they ride up and down the sidewalk. That's a motorized foot scooter, but it doesn't become a dockless vehicle unless it's a commercial use. So that's a little bit of a distinction between those two. Electric bicycles, those are becoming more common. We're seeing more of those. I think somebody up here at the dais maybe got one as a birthday gift. I don't know, just a possibility. But that is electric bikes that are there, an electric personal assistive device. Sometimes it's called a one-wheel. There's a definition there where we're adding that in there. I've touched a little bit on what a motorized foot scooter is, and it gives you a definition of a foot scooter. An operating authority, that is an entity licensed or regulated by the city to own, operate, and offer dockless vehicles for use. Rebalance, that's another term that, yeah, I guess if you're riding a scooter, you need to rebalance yourself, but rebalance as it used within the ordinance is when that operating authority, that business, goes and they remove the dockless vehicles from where they're parked in public property. That term rebalance is to collect those vehicles and take them back to the operating authority's business address. We also define a wheelchair in there, and that can be manually operated or power driven, and where those can be used at. We do all those things so that on the second page of that ordinance, it talks about driving over the sidewalk. Right now, our language in the ordinance is quite dated and isn't maybe as clear as it could be. It talks more about the speed when you cross the sidewalk and things like that. So what the proposed modification on that one is to say that basically pedestrians, a bike, a wheelchair, an electric personal assistance device, or a motorized foot scooter, again, those are not for the commercial use, but the personal ones, that those are all permissible to use our sidewalks. So that's what that change to 70.053 driving over sidewalk would allow for those uses only to be on the sidewalk. So that in a nutshell kind of talks about what your first ordinance is before you. I don't know, Mayor, if you want me to go on to the other two to tie them all together, or you want to discuss these one by one with the wishes of the council are?
How does that work out for legality things if we tie them all together?
As long as you do your codes individually, you can kind of overall discuss them and then go back and do the vote individually.
Okay. I think we just do them all then since they all tie in together.
Okay.
So we'll just go ahead and we'll hear items C, D, and E for those listening in.
Okay. So item D, this is ordinance 1491 that's proposed before you this evening. This one again does two things. It recognizes scooters in our code, and it basically charges them with following the rules of the road. This is a pretty straightforward ordinance. The state did adopt a bill at the 2022 legislative session, which provided cities the opportunity to do this. So by doing this, the automobile rules of the road, scooters, dockless vehicles have to follow the rules of the road. And then prohibited parking areas is also part of that, is that these scooters, motorized foot scooters, shall be parked in places so as not to interfere with pedestrians or traffic. So that's in a nutshell what this proposed ordinance does. And then the final ordinance before you this evening for consideration and discussion is ordinance 1492. And then this one really gets at what an operating authority is. Again, that is, it sets the guidelines for a business looking to rent dockless vehicles, AKA the motorized scooters, or else electric bikes, something along that line. Part of this, with a lot of the businesses that you're involved with, there's an application process that requires proper documentation and insurance, and then you would set a fee for that. Typically, your resolution to set a fee is with the second reading of any particular ordinance. As we've heard with some of our other businesses, we heard it today during a mobile home discussion at your noon meeting, the lifespan of an operating agreement, like a lot of others, is the same as a calendar year. So this license would come up for renewal each calendar year. If they were to have any changes, such as they lost their insurance during the course of the year, they would need to note that to the city. By state statute, and also what's in here, a dockless vehicle is not allowed on a street with a speed limit of 30 miles per hour or greater, which is Stanford, portions of Crawford, Cherry Street, along that, the main ones that come to mind there. I might just go through a few of the guidelines for the operating authority. That'd be found in 70.236. Inspection. Law enforcement may, with or without notice, inspect any dockless vehicle operating under this section to determine whether it complies with this chapter. And basically, I think what that would be is make sure it has adequate working brakes, that there's a headlight and a tail light that is required. Those would probably be the main things that I believe a law enforcement officer might look at. We do note in this ordinance that both the city's police department, the Clay County Sheriff's Office, and the University Police Department can all act as operating enforcement agents for this particular guidelines. There's what's called a rebalance of dockless vehicles. That's to take place within every 48 hours, which is basically, again, removing those dockless vehicles from the public parking areas back to the operating authority's business location. Charging restrictions. This was one of the new meetings where we brought some of these drafts to you and you've had some discussion about it. Certainly you can imagine if you're all of a sudden charging a lot of these electric vehicles, there's a little bit of concern about a potential fire hazard. So we did talk and include in here that the charging restrictions, the charging of dockless vehicles and their batteries shall occur, shall not take place in a residentially zoned area. So basically in the commercial area that way. The operating authority's response time, that they should promptly respond in the event of an inquiry to that operating authority so we can keep good communication with those respective businesses. Age requirement is in there. It does require 18 years of age. There's a riding area that's defined in here. I would note that basically it's 70.238 riding areas, and it talks about basically our downtown business district, that area which has central business district. Dockless vehicles are allowed, but they have to operate at half the maximum speed allowed, which is 15 miles an hour is the maximum speed. So the half of that, they do have to, if you will, slow down when they get into that particular area. Prohibited parking areas, 70.239. You can park a dockless vehicle. This deals with public property only in those authorized parking zones. Operations 70.240, we talked a little bit about this at one of our noon meetings. They're not to be operated on the bike or walking trails, and they're to be ridden by only one person at a time. And then we close this proposed ordinance with some language on safety equipment. Again, it needs to have adequate brakes in good working condition, at least one headlight and tail light, and then the operating authority shall encourage the use of personal protective equipment, but it does not require that, but it encourages them to do that. I think as staff, and I think the council, we've learned a lot about this. We have some local individuals here in our community that are looking at establishing this business, and I appreciate how they have spent time educating us on this, and they've been looking at these proposed ordinances as we've worked through and given us some feedback on it. For those who might be wondering at home, basically there's geofencing that's used that controls where these these dockless vehicles can go. It is rented via credit card, and so if it's just thrown somewhere and it's it's still charging that person. So there's an incentive for them to take it back to one of the proper spaces. There's a lot of different nuances to this. So it's a little bit different than the neighborhood kids who can leave them in my front yard. That's okay. I was young once too, I probably did those things. But nonetheless, it's more controlled and is set up for a business type approach. So we'd be happy to answer any questions. I don't mean to put the business on the spot here, but I think they might be willing to offer comments or questions if you have some. So.
Thank you, John. Is there any visitors to be heard on this? Seeing none, move to council for discussion. Councilor Ward.
Thank you. So rebalancing seems, the way I read it is, let's say that there are scooters, there's a designated area in City Hall parking lot where scooters can be stored. Every 48 hours, those scooters will be removed from that area and taken to the operating business. And then what happens?
That would be their call.
So they have the option to return them to that area? I mean, you know, you want to keep them distributed throughout the city, I would guess.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would think it's to, rebalance. So if you have 100 scooters, and I'm exaggerating here because you probably aren't going to start with 100 in our size community, but you don't want to have all 100 in the corral out here, right? So you want to devise those up. So maybe you have, 5 and 20 different locations, so that they're. I think it helps the business in terms of they can get them back and charge them. They can distribute them. It seemed to be a standard that with a lot of these ordinances that we looked at, that there was a requirement that they be rebalanced. I will tell you, as staff, we kind of looked at it and we struggled a little bit with it because it's kind of telling them how to do their business, because it's really to their advantage to have them spread out. But we left it in there also to avoid the situation of, again, these 100 hypothetical ones, this becomes their station all the time. And so it doesn't become a dumping ground, and it just doesn't become the gathering point of all of them. They get more spread out that way. So I will tell you, we discussed that and had some debate as to whether or not to include a requirement like that.
Thank you.
I guess my biggest concern is I agree with that. We don't want to get too restrictive, in my opinion, on a business so they can still operate and work and do what they need to do without too many unnecessary rules and ordinances, I guess, in my opinion. Councilor Hellwig?
Thank you. So a few things. First of all, I want to say thanks to Jack, who's not here. He did a lot of work on this and educated us and spoke with the business owners regularly, so really appreciative of that. Secondly, I want to go back a little bit to the first part because one of the things that's in here that we haven't really discussed is the fact that it also covers personal assistive devices. And so a while back, there was a resident from Sestac who contacted me and Travis who was concerned about the city's ordinance, the way it was written before, that was unclear about how to use personal assistive devices on sidewalks. And so I'm really glad that this also gave us an opportunity to clean that language up. And so ensuring that those residents know that, yes, you can use and you should use your personal assistive devices on the sidewalks, and you should not be going out on Cherry Street in essentially a motorized wheelchair. So I'm glad we cleared that up. The last thing I want to say is that I had a lot of concerns when this first came out. I know that there are several cities, particularly larger cities, large college cities, tourist cities, and many cities in the entire continent of Europe who are banning these scooters. And so I think that we have made a really good and balanced approach here, because I do think that this will be useful for our college community, particularly with the influx of international students who we have seen who don't have driver's licenses, and this gives them an opportunity to come and enjoy the downtown businesses or visit some of the other businesses and parks and recreation in our whole town, which is wonderful. But I'm really appreciative that we are making good, strict guidelines. I think this, again, like you said, this is a balance of ensuring that the business has some flexibility there, while ensuring that we are not ending up with scooters laying around in random parking spaces and things like that. And I'm glad that the technology has finally caught up to that, so that the geofencing, I think, will help incentivize people to bring them back to their stations and then get rebalanced. And so I'm really looking forward to this, or these set of ordinances. Thank you.
Councilor Holland, you have
Yes, just a couple of things. First of all, I apologize, I didn't find the exact places, but I noticed if they decide to do more than scooters, one could change the rules, because we, more or less in a couple of places, referred to rules on scooters only, and it could be, it may choose to include electric bicycles or other means like that in the future. So that's not important right now.
We're okay, because the dockless vehicle, we did use the example of an electric bicycle or motorized foot scooter. So electric bikes, if a business decided to rent electric bikes commercially, that bike then becomes a dockless vehicle, and then they need to have an operating authority that oversaw it. So at least that particular one we pick up that way.
If I read this correctly, second item, you're basically saying that if you already own a scooter, you privately own one, you can ride on for the kids, they can ride on sidewalks and so forth. But that means that the college students that already own them also have free will to go wherever the other ones can't. Is that correct?
Yes, a motorized foot scooter that's privately owned
Can go anywhere.
can use the sidewalks, yes. And again, we had some discussion, we brought that to the city council, and I think we talked about this at 2 different noon meetings. I guess maybe sometimes the sense of ownership, that you're less likely to abandon it because you've got a little bit more invested in it. And you'll have something invested in the dockless one as well, so maybe different types of investment, I'll just phrase it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Price?
This was something we didn't discuss, I think, in all of our looking at these at noon meetings. Is there any requirement that the business needs to clearly mark their vehicles as business vehicles so that, we say that they could be stopped and inspected? Any way for officers to know that they are commercial vehicles and not private vehicles?
There's not a requirement that it says Phil's scooter or anything like that on it, but it would have the, different than a personal one, it would have that credit card reader and the other types of things so that they can charge an account for it. I don't know.
We'll have our brand logos on it and everything. They'll be wrapped to say Scootsy on it, so you'll know what it is.
In reference to the inspection portion, and we're clarified, we're good with that under Fourth Amendment if law enforcement was to just inspect those, I'm assuming so because of the inherent mobility?
I'm given advance consent by the operating authority.
Okay.
So,
We're good?
yeah.
Okay. Are these vehicles, do you mandate an age limit on there with the operating terms and agreements?
18 or older, yeah.
Right, and that's why I ask, are we being redundant on doing that, or is that? Councilor Holland?
Are we going to talk about all three of them at one time right now? That's okay?
Yeah.
On C, the ordinance 1492. Thank you. Question, I couldn't find anywhere. Should we approve the usage and limitation map?
I'm sorry.
They're going to say you can go here, in other words, it's programmed where you can go and can't go with the scooters, and it's done electronically, I guess. Should we approve that? If they might say we can go 30 miles an hour downtown, and we don't want that, for instance, I know they won't, but do you follow me? They offer, you're going to program it so it says only a certain miles per hour in one section, you can't go certain sections of USD and things like that.
We can have full control both over like the geofencing of where they're allowed, so they just simply will stop working if you.
Heather, can you come to
sure.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. We'll have full control over the geofencing of where they're allowed. So if it goes outside of that, they'll just completely stop working.
Yep.
And then we can mandate certain speed limits within certain zones, and it will just not exceed a certain speed limit within the geofence zones.
I understand it, and that's great, it's a very good idea. I'm asking if we, the city, want to look at that and say, yes, we agree with that, or don't agree. there may be areas that we'd say, please slow it down or speed it up. That's what I'm asking. Is it in the part of the application that you know of, John?
I think the only, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the maximum speed they can go is 15.
Right.
Okay, so, and then we have this section in the one ordinance that would say it'd be half that speed in the downtown business district. So, and just to use an example, I'm thinking of our elementary schools, for example, is that we have school zones there which have a lower speed. Or are you suggesting that we might want to offer, that they would be required to have a lower speed in certain areas? Something like that? Is that-
Basically, I'm 99% sure they're going to do it just fine, just the way we like it. But shouldn't we have the right to look at it?
Okay.
You know, prior, that's all.
So maybe the question might be, in their application, have them provide any differences in speed that they have,
Just
or
show
is
them
it
that.
awarding it if we wanted to say that in our school zones, I'm just using that, is 10 miles an hour instead of the 15, because we ask cars to slow down, we could include that in there, something along that line. I think that could be potentially, I'm looking at Sabrina, something we could include in our licensing agreement, or operating authority agreement.
You could put it in the application materials or put it in the ordinance itself.
I think in the application materials, and when they're awarded operating authority agreement, we would include that language in there.
Yeah, again, this is just, I think, a first reading, so you can make those changes and request those things as it works through the process. Absolutely.
I think, ideally, I think just on first thought of it, I don't know if we'd be putting the cart in front of the horse, so to say. Is it too much, too soon? Are we gonna have an issue with the scooters maybe in a school zone or whatever? I think the downtown area, I think, is the biggest concern.
I think the school area is a concern also, but basically, look at it so we can say yes, and we most likely will say yes. If we ever need to change it, we can then address that. That's all.
Councilor.
So the conversation about the 18 years of age got me thinking. So looking at section 70.237, the age requirement. So I understand if the business requires everybody 18 and over to rent one, but John's using examples talking about kids riding down the street. So is this ordinance then curtailing the children in town who already have these and can no longer ride them? If we're putting in that at least 18 years of age?
That's just for commercial vehicles.
So that is only for the commercial entities, have to be 18 years and over, okay. Thank you.
Which they'd have to be because it'd be part of the terms and agreements by the renting them. Councilor Genoway.
Yeah, so that actually, I hadn't thought about this until we started talking about school zones, but there's nothing in what we are proposing here that says only one adult on the scooter. I understand that that's probably the terms of service of the, for the riding?
It is in here.
Like, does it say you can't have a child also on it, or?
There's only
One person.
Yeah.
It does say that.
Yep, it was, what was it?
240.240 subsection C.
Yep. Under operations. The last page.
Oh, okay, one person at a time. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? The one thing I also mentioned too, with them operating the bike and walking trails, I guess my only concern with that is I don't think I would have a problem with them going on the bike and walking trails. If you're talking about a bicycle or a scooter, whether it's commercial use or not. I mean, I think sidewalk downtown is different, but on an actual bike or walking trail, I don't think I'd have an issue with that.
I don't
That's
think
crazy.
any motorized vehicles are allowed on the bike and walking trails, are they? Except a wheelchair.
Yeah. With electric bike, a personally owned electric bike, a wheelchair, I want to say one wheel, but that's the wrong term. What's our proper term for that?
One wheel will do.
So those items would be motorized, that would be allowed on there.
And that's what I'm saying, with those already allowed on there, and now we're just basing, because it's commercial use, not allowed on the bike and a walking path. I don't think I would have an issue with those. Councilor Genoway?
To respond to that, I agree, like, I think that the quarters is there are probably gonna be a number of users by the quarters, and that is like right on one of the paths, so I can agree with that concern there, but maybe down by Cotton Park, I don't know if we have the clearance to get out of the way if someone's zooming by. I don't know. I also ride
Right
a
now,
bike.
the geofencing area that we have discussed does not allow them to go down into Lower Verm. So if that, just eliminates that concern.
Exposed riding up that hill wouldn't be fun. Councilor Ward?
Yeah, that may solve the issue, but I do think we should allow them on the bike path within the rideable area. I mean, bikes go faster than that all the time with pedestrians on there, so I don't think that's a big deal. I do think it might also, so I think we could clean that up for second reading. And do we need to make an amendment to that in first reading?
My sense is what I believe I'm hearing is a consensus to remove what would be 7240B, dockless vehicles are not to be operating the bike, walking trails within the city limits. We would just bring you back for second reading this ordinance 1492 without that language in there. It doesn't need to be specific to the motion.
All you do on the first one is just advance to the second reading, and then that's what you made. But they can read them ahead of time.
Okay, great. Okay. The other thing that I might want, I would ask for city staff to look at is the application, and maybe I can't see it here, but does the application have to get from the provider a map of the area of which, I mean, is it going to be that detailed, or is that just up to the provider to decide where the scooters can go and how fast they can go?
I would offer that I think that's a reasonable request of the city in issuing an operating authority agreement to have them define the areas in which they will allow it. Whether or not you want that spelled out in the code, we could add it, or we could just, it could be understood that when we have that application developed, that'll be a requirement that we have.
And then we just approve that by resolution, or it's just city staff handles that?
Just administration.
Okay, and if that's typical
For
of other applications that we have?
They do, unless they, obviously they involve alcohol, those come before city council. But the food trucks and a lot of other licenses are done administratively.
Great, thank you.
Councilor Butler, I'm sorry.
So to that point then, under 70.231, the application, would we want to add section D that just says other supporting materials as city staff may request or something? That way it can be included that, I don't think the ordinance is the proper place to put every supporting document you might need, but I think there should be a line that says there could be other supporting documents requested, and it might be the maps or something like that.
Any other discussion? Let me ask this. I'm assuming you've had time to review these, correct?
Yes.
Are they within reason to the business?
Yes, we're very excited, very, very excited to get started.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Is it a move approval, or is it with corrections, or do you address that one?
We have to do one at a time. So the first one would be the first reading of ordinance 1490. So the item 8C, the ordinances Title 7, Traffic Code, Chapter 70, General Traffic and Parking Regulations, amending Section 70.02, definitions of Section 70.053, driving over sidewalk. So that's the first one.
Move approval.
Motion to approve that one by Counselor Price and second by Counselor Helwig. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the approval?
It's just a move to
Oh.
advance into the second reading.
Oh, correct. Thank you. Motion to, correct. Thank you. To advance. And then the next one would be the
We need a vote.
motion to approve to advance. It's been a long day. It's been a long, hot day. To advance the reading, the ordinance. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by saying nay. Did you just say nay?
I did accidentally, and I, please retract that.
Glad I'm not the only one who the heat is getting to.
I am
All right, item 8D, first reading of ordinance 1491, amending City of Vermillion Code and Ordinances Title 7 Traffic Code, Chapter 70 Traffic, General Traffic and Parking Regulations, adding sections 70.220 and 70.221. This would be the second ordinance that you guys see on there. Is there a motion to advance that? Motion by Councilor Lettler to advance and second by Councilor Genowine. Any other discussion? All those in favor of advancing the ordinance signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by saying nay. Carries. Next item be first reading of ordinance 1492, amending City and Vermillion Code and Ordinances, Title 7, Traffic Code, Chapter 70, General Traffic and Parking Regulations, added section 70.230 through 70.241. This will be the last ordinance that you saw in that. Motion to advance by Councilor Helwig and a second by Councilor Murrah. Any other discussion?
Do we need to include the changes that were discussed?
No, because you're just,
Because we're advancing.
Yep. Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by saying nay.
Thank you all.
Motion carries.
My next business will be a evening childcare service of sorts, so I will hopefully be without a running around.
You're fine.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, next item, bid openings. We don't have any bid openings, so we'll move on to the city manager's report.
Thank you. A couple items for this evening. Just a reminder that the final Thursdays on the Platts is coming up this Thursday, August 24th. So again, just portions of Main Street and Market Street will be closed for this event. Two of our boards or commissions, we do have openings, one we have an opening. As Councilmember Holland referenced, Planning Commission member Forsyth passed away. We do have an opening in the Planning and Zoning Commission. That term would expire in June of 2025. We do ask that expression of interest forms be submitted by Monday, August 28th at noon, and it's anticipated the City Council will then make an appointment at your next meeting on September 5th. We have two terms expiring on our city's Historic Preservation Commission. These terms are for 3 years. The way that ordinance is set up, at least 4 of those 7 members of the commission need to either reside in a historic district or own a property in the National Historic Register. With these two openings, at least one of the 2 members will need to meet one of those qualifications based on the current makeup of the commission, so we maintain our 4. Again, we do ask that those expression of interest forms be submitted by Monday, August 28th at noon, and it's anticipated the City Council will make an appointment at the September 5th meeting. When we have plats that can be done administratively, the process is Jose would sign on those, and then we report them at the next City Council meeting so that they're recorded in the minutes. Lots 1 and 2, Block 1 of Barari Edition, that was replatted as Lot 1A, Block 1, Barari Edition. That is colloquially known as Dr. Olson's Clinic in the lot to the west. That was combined into one large lot. You've heard me say September 5th a few times, and that's because Monday, September 4th, Jose's birthday or the day after Jose's birthday?
It's Mike's birthday.
Mike's birthday, Mike Carlson, okay. So Jose's after party. But Monday, September 4th is Labor Day, and so the next regular city council meetings will be on Tuesday, September 5th. And then included in your packet was one raffle notification. The St. Agnes Knights of Columbus, they're selling their NFL Monday Night Football books. The cost of a book is $20. There's one $50 winner each week per 100 books sold. I believe they're trying to sell 200 books. The winner is determined by the last digit in the score of each team playing that particular Monday night. After the prizes, the Knights anticipate having approximately half the proceeds left to fund their philanthropic work.
Those are the items that I have for this evening.
Thank you, John. Next item would be the invoices. Everybody had a chance to review the invoices and the bills. So is there any discussion?
Move to pay our bills.
Motion to pay the bills by Counselor Price, second by Counselor Humphrey. Any other discussion? All those in favor to pay the bills signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by saying nay. Motion to pay the bills passes. We have no consensus agenda. The next item we would have is the executive session. Is there a motion to move into executive session?
Second.
Motion to move into executive session by Counselor Warner, second by Counselor Price. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by saying nay. Council will be in executive session. Ask those to step out of the room.
The numbers.